Emily Carter stood at the iron gates of Hawthorne Estate, her suitcase resting beside her like a quiet question she wasn't sure she should ask. The mansion loomed ahead, old and dignified, the kind of place that looked like it had seen more history than it ever shared. This wasn't how she imagined starting over at 28, but life hadn't exactly asked her opinion lately. 6 months ago, she'd lost her job at a small nonprofit in Boston after budget cuts. 2 months after that, her long-term relationship ended with a polite conversation and a suitcase left at the door. When the listing for a temporary live-in caretaker popped up, good pay, short-term, discretion required, she'd hesitated. But desperation has a way of quieting doubt. The gates opened automatically, slow and deliberate, as if testing her patience. Emily inhaled deeply and stepped onto the gravel drive. Inside the house, the air smelled faintly of lemon polish and old books. A woman in her 50s, neatly dressed and sharp-eyed, greeted her with a professional smile. "You must be Emily," she said. "I'm Mrs. Langford, the house manager. Follow me." They walked through long hallways lined with portraits, men in tailored suits, women with distant smiles. Emily noticed something missing.
Joy.
None of the faces looked warm, Mrs. Langford stopped near the staircase. "Before we go any further, there are rules." Emily straightened. "Of course. This position is temporary. 3 months, possibly less. You are here to help with the children. Nothing more." "The children?" Emily asked. "Yes. Oliver and Grace Hawthorne, ages 8 and 6. Mrs. Langford paused, then added carefully, "Their father prefers distance." That was when Emily first heard about William Hawthorne, the Duke, locals called him, half joking, half serious. A powerful real estate developer, old money, old wounds. Widowed.
Cold.
Untouchable. "You won't see much of him," Mrs. Langford said. "And when you do, you're to remain professional. Mr. Hawthorne doesn't encourage attachments." Emily nodded, though something tightened in her chest. Her room was on the 3rd floor, modest but comfortable. That night, exhaustion hit her the moment she lay down. Still, sleep didn't come easily. The house creaked, the wind whispered, and the silence felt heavy, as if the walls were holding secrets. The next morning, she met the children. Grace was shy, hiding behind the staircase, clutching a stuffed rabbit with one ear missing. Oliver stood protectively in front of her, his small shoulders squared like he was ready to defend his sister from the world. "Hi," Emily said softly, crouching to their level.
"I'm Ami."
Neither spoke to Mrs. Langford sighed. "They don't warm up easily." Emily smiled anyway. "That's okay. We've got time." Oliver studied her carefully. "You won't leave, right?" The question caught her off guard. I'm here for now," she said honestly. Grace peeked out. "Everyone says that." Emily felt a sting behind her eyes. Over the next few days, she learned the rhythm of the house. Breakfasts eaten quietly. Tutors arriving and leaving. A father who existed mostly as footsteps and closed doors. She finally saw him on the 4th evening. William Hawthorne stood at the end of the hallway, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark suit even at home. His face was handsome but guarded, like a man who'd learned to lock every door inside himself. "You're the new caretaker," he said flatly. "Yes, sir." "Don't get attached," he said without hesitation. "My children don't need false hope." The words stung more than she expected. "I'm just here to do my job," Emily replied quietly. "Good," he said, already turning away. "Because this arrangement is temporary." That night, Emily sat on her bed, staring at the ceiling. She reminded herself why she was here: for stability, for a paycheck, for survival. Not love, not family, certainly not him. But as she lay down, she noticed something strange. An envelope rested neatly on her pillow, an O name. Just a drawing of two stick figures holding hands. Her heart began to race. She opened it slowly. Inside, written in uneven handwriting, were four simple words that made her breath catch. "We choose you." Emily sank onto the bed, clutching the letter to her chest, unaware that this single choice, made by two children, was about to change everything. Emily read the letter again the next morning, her fingers tracing the uneven pencil lines as if they might disappear if she didn't. "We choose you." Four simple words, yet they weighed more than anything she'd carried into Hawthorne Estate. She folded the paper carefully and slipped it into her sweater pocket before heading downstairs. A tea breakfast. Oliver and Grace sat at the long dining table, their feet dangling above the floor. They glanced up when Emily entered, eyes wide, expectant. "You found it?" Oliver asked in a hushed voice. Emily smiled gently. "I did." Grace beamed, then quickly looked toward the doorway as if afraid someone might overhear. "We weren't supposed to, but we wanted you to know." "Know what?" Emily asked, sitting across from them. "That we don't want you to go," Oliver said. "You're different." Emily's chest tightened. She wanted to promise them everything, to stay, to protect them from every loss. But William Hawthorne's voice echoed in her head. "Don't get attached. I'm really glad you told me," she said carefully. "But we all need to be honest with each other, too." Grace's smile faded slightly. "Dad doesn't like when people stay." The truth settled heavy between them. Later that day, Emily took the children into town for the first time. Mrs. Langford hesitated but allowed it, insisting on strict timing. The small New England town square felt alive compared to the quiet estate. They stopped for hot chocolate at a local cafe, the kind with handwritten menus and photos of high school football teams on the wall. For the first time, Oliver laughed out loud. Grace held Emily's hand as they walked past the bookstore, her grip warm and trusting. Emily didn't realize how starved she'd been for that simple connection until then, but when they returned, the mood shifted instantly. William Hawthorne stood in the foyer, jaw tight, eyes cold. "Where were you?" he demanded. "To town," Emily answered calmly. They needed air. Normalcy. "I don't recall approving that." "They're children," she said before she could stop herself. "Not prisoners." Silence fell like a dropped glass. William's eyes darkened. "You're overstepping." "I'm doing my job," Emily replied, her voice steady though her heart raced. His gaze flicked to Grace, who had moved behind Emily without realizing it. "Go upstairs," he told the children. They obeyed reluctantly, Oliver casting Emily a worried glance. William exhaled sharply. "This is exactly what I warned about." "About caring?" Emily asked quietly. "About damage," he snapped. "They've already lost their mother. I won't let them lose another person they get attached to." Emily softened then, seeing the crack beneath his anger. "I'm not trying to replace anyone," she said. "I'm just here." "That's the problem," he said coldly. "No one ever just stays." That night, Emily lay awake again. But this time, fear replaced curiosity. What if he fired her? What if he sent her away without warning? She reached into her pocket and pulled out the letter. Down the hall, Oliver and Grace whispered behind their door. "She's gonna leave." Grace sniffed. "No," Oliver said firmly. "We won't let her." Emily didn't hear them, but the decision forming in their young hearts would soon force their father to face a truth he'd buried for years, and when morning came, A secret would surface that even William Hawthorne wasn't prepared for. Emily noticed the change immediately. Oliver stopped talking during breakfast. Grace barely touched her pancakes. The laughter from the cafe visit felt like it belonged to another lifetime. "Hey," Emily said gently, kneeling beside Grace's chair. "What's going on?" Grace shrugged, eyes fixed on her plate. Oliver spoke instead. "Dad's mad." Emily forced a small smile. "Adults get mad sometimes. It doesn't mean you did anything wrong." But Oliver shook his head. "He always gets mad when we like someone." The words hit harder than Emily expected. Later that afternoon, while the children were with their tutor, Mrs. Langford pulled Emily aside near the kitchen. "You need to be careful," she said quietly. "Mr. Hawthorne has already lost one woman to this house." Emily frowned. "What do you mean?" Mrs. Langford hesitated, then sighed. "Their mother, Charlotte Hawthorne, died here, in that bedroom down the hall." Emily's breath caught. She was ill. Mrs. Langford continued, lowering her voice.
Cancer.
"The kind that gives you hope just long enough to break you. Mr. Hawthorne watched her fade away in that house, in that bed. After that, he shut everything down." Emily felt the weight of it settle deep in her chest. "That's why he keeps people distant," Mrs. Langford said. "He believes love only ends one way." That evening, Emily found herself standing outside the closed door of William's study. She hadn't planned to confront him, but some truths demanded air. She knocked. "Come in," his voice said flatly. The study smelled of leather and old paper. William stood by the window, looking out over the darkened grounds. "I heard about your wife," Emily said softly. His shoulders stiffened. "You shouldn't be discussing my family," he replied without turning. "I'm not judging," she said. "I'm understanding." He turned then, eyes sharp. "You think you know grief?" "I think I recognize fear," Emily said. "And it's hurting your children." The silence stretched. Finally, he spoke. "They get attached. Then people leave. I won't put them through that again." "You're putting them through it every day," she replied gently. "By teaching them love is temporary." Something flickered in his eyes. Pain, anger, maybe both. "This arrangement ends soon," he said coldly. "I suggest you prepare them." Emily swallowed hard. "I won't lie to them." "Then don't stay," he snapped. That night, Emily sat on her bed, packing slowly. Not because she had decided to leave, but because she needed to be ready if she was forced. A soft knock came at the door. Oliver and Grace stood there in pajamas, eyes wide and determined. "We heard him," Oliver whispered. "He's going to send you away." Grace held out a folded piece of paper. "We made another one." Emily opened it. This time, the handwriting was shakier. The message longer. "Please don't leave. We already lost Mom. We can't lose you too." Emily pulled them into her arms, holding them tightly as tears finally fell. Downstairs, William stood in the dark hallway, unseen, having heard everything, and for the first time since his wife died, the walls he'd built began to crack, but fear still held him tight, and fear, when challenged, rarely goes quietly. The next morning arrived heavy with tension, like a storm that refused to break. Emily barely slept. She lay awake listening to the quiet breathing of the house, knowing something was coming, something final. The children's letter sat on her nightstand, unfolded, as if reminding her why leaving felt impossible. Downstairs, the sound of raised voices cut through the stillness. "I said it's for the best," William's voice snapped. Emily paused at the top of the staircase. "They've already started depending on her," Mrs. Langford replied. "And so have you, whether you admit it or not." "That's not true," William said sharply. Emily descended the stairs slowly, heart pounding. "If you're going to fire me," she said, "I'd rather it be said to my face." William turned. His expression was unreadable. "I've made a decision," he said. "Your contract will end early. You'll be compensated." Grace let out a small gasp from behind the railing. Oliver stepped forward. "You promise people don't leave." William stiffened. "Go to your room." "No," Oliver said, voice shaking but firm. "We choose her." Silence exploded through the hall. William stared at his son, stunned. Emily felt tears burn behind her eyes. "Please don't put them in the middle of this." "They put themselves there," William said, though his voice lacked conviction. Grace ran forward and wrapped her arms around Emily's waist. "You make it stop hurting," she whispered. Something in William finally broke. He turned away, pressing his hands against the edge of the table as if steadying himself. "I can't lose another woman," he said quietly. "I won't survive it." Emily stepped closer, her voice soft but unyielding. "You already are losing something. Every day you push love away." He looked at her then, really looked. Not as an employee, not as a threat, but as a woman standing in the wreckage of his fear. That afternoon, a black SUV pulled into the driveway. William's sister, Margaret Hawthorne, stepped out. Elegant,
Direct.
unafraid. "I came because your children called me," she said, cutting him a sharp glance. "They what?" William asked. Margaret knelt in front of Oliver and Grace. "You did the right thing." She stood and faced her brother. "You think protecting them means isolation. It doesn't. It means letting them love, even if it scares you." Emily watched as years of grief and stubborn pride collided on William's face. "I'm giving you one night," Margaret said. "One honest conversation. Or you lose them emotionally, long before you lose her physically." That evening, William knocked on Emily's door. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "I don't know how to stay." Emily met his gaze. "Neither did I. But I tried." For the first time, he didn't push her away, and in that fragile moment, everything hung in the balance: love, family, and the final choice that would either heal them or shatter them for good. The house felt different that night, not lighter, just honest. Emily sat on the edge of her bed, hands folded, heart racing. When William knocked again, softer this time, she knew this wasn't about contracts or rules anymore. It was about truth. "May I come in?" he asked. She nodded. He didn't sit right away. Instead, he stood near the window, staring out at the dark lawn where his children used to play with their mother. "I loved my wife more than I knew how to survive," he said quietly. "When she died, I convinced myself love was the problem. That if I shut it out, I could keep my children safe." Emily listened, unmoving, "But all I did was teach them to grieve alone." His voice broke. "They chose you because you stayed," he continued, "and because you didn't ask them to be strong." Emily stood then. "I never meant to replace anyone."
"I know," he said.
"You didn't replace her. You reminded us how to live." The next morning, William gathered everyone in the sunlit breakfast room: Mrs. Langford, Margaret, the staff, and most importantly, Oliver and Grace. "I made a mistake," he said plainly, "and I'm done running from it." The children froze. "I asked Emily to stay," he said. "Not as a caretaker. As family, if she's willing." Grace squealed and ran into Emily's arms. Oliver blinked hard. "For real?" "For real," William said, kneeling to meet his son's eyes. "And I'm sorry it took me so long." Weeks passed. Emily officially moved into a brighter room, one that didn't feel borrowed. She helped with homework, soccer practices, PDA meetings. Normal American chaos filled the halls, spilled cereal, late buses, laughter echoing through rooms once silent, and slowly, carefully, something else grew. William learned to stay for dinner, to listen, to laugh. Love didn't arrive all at once. It showed up in coffee cups left warm, in shared glances during school plays, in the way his hand found hers when the children weren't looking. Point one evening, months later, Emily found another letter on her bed. This one wasn't written in pencil. They chose you first, it read. But now, so do I. Downstairs, Oliver and Grace waited on the couch, smiling knowingly. You're not leaving, Oliver said. Emily smiled through tears.
No.
I'm home. Outside, Hawthorne Estate glowed warmly for the first time in years, and the Duke, who once swore he would never love again, finally understood. Love didn't break him. Love saved them all.